Omonivie Okhade is a Sacramento-based artist who makes jewelry under the brand Tula in Bloom, which was established in 2013. Using traditional metalworking techniques, she seeks to articulate inner experiences and connect with wearers investigating their personal journeys. Most recently, her work was showcased in the De Young Museum store in San Francisco in conjunction with the touring exhibit Soul of a Nation, Art in the Age of Black Power, 1963 to 1983. So hi, it's nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you too, Sandra.
I actually came by your studio. I think it was last year.
Nice, okay.
Yeah, so describe for me what's a typical or not so typical day in your studio.
I never have a typical day. I try. I recently tried to structure my days a little bit better. So right now, Tuesdays and Wednesdays are the days that I actually work in my studio, and my studio is in my home. So it's like literally just kind of climbing up my steps and sitting at my workbench. So yeah, so I try to do work on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and as I'm like kind of going through it, like some Tuesdays it's not working out, I'm doing other things, or what have you. What I'm realizing is that my energy to do physical labor is kind of morning to midday, and then I kind of tap out around late afternoon, and that's when I can do like more admin work. So usually like I'm working on orders online. Right now I'm also working on a new collection, so trying to structure like when I'm working on orders, or when I'm working on a new collection, or when I'm working on maybe getting an older collection casted, which means working with another maker. I'm still figuring it out. It's all kind of a learning process.
Yeah, right. Well, you definitely have beautiful work. So tell me about your current body of work.
So I started getting into concepts around personal experiences and self-development. A few years ago, I was in a class at Sac City with Maya Keeney, who's like one of my favorite jewelry makers, small metal sculptures. She's awesome. So I was like really stoked to take her class, and we were kind of doing independent study, and and it was probably the first time second time, because I had taken one of the earlier level classes from her. So the second time I kind of came up with a collection from concept to sketching and drawing the shapes to fabricating, and kind of going through that like really structured process. Whereas before it was kind of intuitive. It was just me looking at certain materials and thinking these will go well together, and then kind of making one-off pieces, which has its own merit as well. But this current like place that I'm in, like that class and creating that particular collection brought me to this idea of materializing concepts related to how I'm moving through life, and how I know a lot of people are moving through life, and what we can do to motivate ourselves, or to find solace, or to remind ourselves of our own power. So my process is really like kind of thinking of like those deep concepts, which I'm always kind of thinking about because I'm always like in my head, and then looking at how does that relate to shapes, and how does that relate to symbols. So that's kind of where I'm at with that currently.
So talk a bit more about how that plays out then in certain shapes. I mean, do they symbolize something for you, certain shapes, or
yeah,
or how shapes play together, or is it the material you work in?
Well, it's so my best example is my last collection, which was the one that I had worked on at Sac City, and it It's kind of a funny story. So when I was thinking about the concept, I was thinking about, okay, what am I having difficulty with? Oh yeah, change. And I've had been going through like transition after transition, and I always felt like I was in transition. And so I kind of, it was like advice to myself about how we have to be more agile and adept at change and learning how to pivot.
Mm.
And so when I started thinking about that, I was kind of doing research and looking at, what relates to change. And it could be texture, it could be how things move, it could be um, changes in color and things like that. So that kind of got me thinking about, especially like movement. I was thinking about twisting and how, change can kind of
Mm.
like, flip and twist and move around. And so that got me into the shape of the Mobius strip, which I didn't know. This is the funny part, because I didn't know about the Mobius strip when I did it. and, so I was like, drawing out like these shapes, and I was like, oh, well, this, kind of makes sense. And you have like this kind of flip. And so I just started kind of running with that. And I remember meeting with a kind of cohort from Sac State who were also metalsmiths, and somebody pointed it out. There was like, oh, that's a Mobius strip. And I was like, oh, is it? And then I looked it up. I was like, no. Not only was this the shape already in existence, there was also jewelry like dedicated to that shape. And I was like,
Right.
I feel like such a fraud. So, I went back to my group, and I was like, well, should I just keep going? Should I like scrap it? And they were like, you know what? It's, you know, everything under the sun has been done. How you
Right.
bring what you do into the world is unique to you. So I just went with that. And yeah, and so that's kind of how those shapes came to be. And I played with the Mobius strip a little bit. I created more like teardrop shapes, and
Hmm.
played with size and things like that. So I made it mine. But yeah, the definitely I
Yeah.
see Yana's comment. Yes, I do draw. That was like one of my first forms of art when I was younger, was drawing. So I'm drawing my way through it. I'm writing my way through it, and eventually, hopefully, I get to a shape. This current collection that I'm working on, I feel like the shapes kind of came first. It's about what's missing and how we tend to focus on what's in lack in our lives rather
Uh-huh.
than
Yeah.
what's there. And it's in a roundabout way, it's about gratitude. So and that came from drawing these like elongated circles and ovals, and these kind of just really structured rectangles around them, and like seeing how there's like this giant negative space. And then that got me thinking. And so in that sense, it became more of a reverse process. So I'm kind of running with that. And yeah,
Mm.
that's how that's going.
Does it always start with drawing first, or do you ever go right to material?
Um, I think it sometimes it starts with words. So, like I said,
Oh.
with Delta, it was about writing out this concept that I was thinking about, and the thing that I struggle with which was change, and then with a collection that I was or a concept that I was thinking about last year that got put on the back burner because I couldn't um, get to the shapes part. I think maybe the concept was a little too big, but
Hmm.
you know that was also kind of starting out with a narrative. Um, this time around, yeah, like it's the drawing, and then I kind of knew what materials I would work with as I was drawing. I knew I wanted contrast, and so I'm looking at and this is going to be a decision I have to make. I'm looking at either golds or bronze, brass, kind of keeping it at a certain cost level, and
Yep.
dark and silver. So I'm gonna, going with that bright yellow and that dark gray black with, highlights of bright silver. So I kind of knew that I wanted that negative space to stand out, and it had to be framed by something, and then you can kind of see like what's outside of that, if that makes sense.
Right. I think so. I think so. I find it interesting where, I read a little bit about you where you, watched your mother make jewelry, repair jewelry, create new things from different pieces of jewelry.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have this real artistic process behind it that starts very conceptually also.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So you've talked about change. Obviously, COVID has caused a lot of change.
Mm-hmm.
So has that changed your process at all? Are you working on something new because of it?
I think, well, practically speaking, like my day-to-day hadn't really changed besides the cancellation of all the events, because I did participate in a number of events during the year, going out and doing shows and meeting people in person. But since I work from home, that process kind of remained the same. So I think it more had to do with, having a little more time at home and not having to prepare for these events. Because I still struggle with change. I didn't do a whole lot of process work in terms of pivoting. So I saw a lot of my peers like easily transitioning to like online connections with folks and doing, live streams. So tomorrow's gonna be fun. I'm a little nervous, but but in terms of like creating art in reaction to what is happening, I mean, there's so many things that are happening, and I think the idea of like me just putting anything out, is a reaction. I think it just happens naturally. I do want to say that I've written a lot more. I've done more poetry. I've done more narratives, and kind of my creativity is not just with metal and jewelry. I think this time has kind of encouraged other forms to come out more. So it's it's almost been kind of like a release into a field of play. Like, let's do all the things. I'm sewing over here, and I'm writing over here, and oh, maybe I can do comedy.
Right.
So, my friend Temperance would not agree, but we try. You just put it out there. You just try. So I think with regards to jewelry specifically and this new collection, it probably would not have happened were it not for this pandemic, because the idea of with everything kind of like seemingly falling down around us, and Justina said, I watch do comedy.
The year that keeps on giving, right?
Yeah, the year that keeps on giving. Like, it's been pretty devastating in so many different areas, and it feels like we're getting hit on all sides. So you wonder, and I've heard this from people, and I feel it in myself, like, what do you do when you feel like there's everything to do and you can do nothing? And so, I'm an active meditator. I practice, I co-facilitate a group of Black, Indigenous people of color in our meditation Sangha. And so I've been sitting and trying to look inward. Like, I put out in my jewelry, I literally have a ring called Inward. And this idea of, practicing gratitude for what you have, and, honoring what's gone, but not getting so stuck on it that you can't move forward and you forget that you're still alive and you have the opportunity to change and do better. So, I think I probably still would have been trying to hammer out the just amorphous, general, like, let's save the world concept that I had last year. That was just a little, it needed to be focused. And so I feel like this is a focus.
And now we're in a situation where, yeah, I guess you can. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I wanted to ask, what other kinds of art do you create? And so you obviously, you write for sure, and draw. Is there anything else you do?
So I dance, and not regularly. I feel like all of these pursuits are kind of like spits and spurts. Actually, when the shutdown happened in March, I was going to participate in a Women's Month event at Art House. And I was going to dance, and I had choreographed a piece, and it was the first time I choreographed in a long time. And I was just feeling my age, and, but it was super exciting. And so I feel like dance was the first form of art that I related to therapy, because it allowed me to express emotion in a physical way without harming anybody and myself. Well, I hurt myself by getting injured, but yeah. So so dance is a form. I love to style and arrange, and I'm a thrift store shopper from way back, from REO Speedwagon playing over the loudspeakers when my mom would take us when we were kids, and it was embarrassing. And so I realize that I'm a collector, and I've collected way too many clothes. So this COVID time has allowed me to start putting those clothes out for sale. So I have an Instagram called Shop for the Moment, and I sell my loved, reloved, and reloved again clothes that some of them I've altered. I sell those too. What else? So my background is like completely different from what I'm doing now. I went to school for science and health. I in psychology, and then I got my master's in healthcare administration, and I worked there for about 6 years. And when I decided to, when I left that field, got laid off, whatever, it was bad economy. Okay. When that transition happened and I decided to kind of go back into art, I wanted to try everything, because I didn't know, what direction I was going in. So when I moved back to Sacramento, I had an idea in mind. I was doing book writing, children's book writing and illustration. That was the plan that I came back to Sacramento with. And so in order to really get the illustration down, I took watercolor classes, acrylic classes. Later on, I took a figure drawing class with Joya Fonda at Sac City.
We're down to our last.
I can talk all day. Minute. I realize. Sorry.
I'm going to give you the opportunity to let people know where they can purchase your jewelry. Before this ends. But it's been great. Getting to know you and learning about you.
Yeah.
So where can they buy your jewelry?
Yes. So you can buy my jewelry at tulaandbloom.com. And you can follow me on Instagram at Tula and Bloom. And on my website, you can sign up for my email newsletter. So I send out updates, and you can get like specials and stuff on certain pieces. And I also do custom orders. So I recently updated the website to include a gallery of custom orders, so you can have an example of what I do, which is another great way for me to explore my art.
Cool. Fantastic.
Yeah, this was such a great interview. I'm so happy. It was a good way to wrap up Friday night.
Thanks.
Yeah. Cool. So let me head over here. So I want to appreciate everybody who participated in the interviews this evening, all of the artists. I also want to thank our committee chair, Sandra, for volunteering her time, and also Gwenna for volunteering her time to interview artists this evening. You can learn more about Sac Open Studios in the artist directory, and also at sacopenstudios.com. And if you want more of this and you enjoyed what you saw, we'll be back here tomorrow at 11 a.m. So you can, again, go to sacopenstudios.com or vergeart.com, which there's a pop-up that makes it really easy for you to access these videos, and you can register in advance if you like. And I just want to thank you all for tuning in. So have a good night, everybody. Thanks, Sandra.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.